You must have noticed how everyone, sooner or later in the gospel, seems to have a difficulty with Jesus, to misunderstand him, or in some way to have trouble with what he preaches or what he does. Of course, we know there were those who were against him from the beginning, and the Gospels point that out pretty well. Some of the Pharisees and Sadducees, etc., some of the Jewish leaders. And they have difficulty with his teachings for their own reasons. But even those who follow him, remember that section in John we call the bread of life discourse? Jesus says, unless you eat my flesh and drink my blood, you shall not have life within you. And a whole group of his disciples says, this saying is too hard, and left him, But even the apostles, Philip, after 2.5 years with Jesus or something, says, show us the Father and we'll be satisfied. And Jesus says to him, Philip, if you've been with me this long and still don't get it, if you've seen me, you've seen the Father. Thomas, I won't believe unless I can put my fingers in the nail marks, my hand in his side, And Jesus says, come on, do it. Don't be unbelieving. After the resurrection again, where still they come to right before the ascension, they come to the mountain, They worshiped, but they doubted. Everyone struggles, right? They don't completely understand Jesus because what he preaches is something completely different, completely new. He shows them the meaning of the law, which is the way God understands, right? Not the way human beings understand. And even his own family, he must be out of his mind. They come to get him. And it's impossible to know exactly what her part was in it, but even apparently his mother was there with them to get him. But his mother too is not exempt from not understanding him. Yes, she was conceived without sin, lived a life without sin, but that doesn't mean she had perfect understanding. And so when she and Joseph find Jesus in the temple, she says, why have you done this? We are looking for you with great anxiety. And Jesus says, did you not know I had to be about my Father's business or in my Father's house? And Luke tells us that Mary goes home pondering these things in her heart, trying to figure out exactly what this means, And so everyone has trouble understanding Jesus at some point. And so it shouldn't surprise us if we also have difficulties from time to time. And if there are times when you don't understand some teaching of Jesus, or you have trouble with one of the commandments or with the teaching of the church, you're in good company. You're in the whole line of people who have followed Jesus from the beginning of his ministry. And so don't let that upset you, the fact that you are struggling with something. Or if even in your own life, especially in your own life, really, if you don't know what God is doing, where God is leading you. There's that lovely passage from one of the Psalms. The blind I will lead on their journey. By paths unknown I will guide them. Jesus always calls us out of ourselves. He calls us beyond ourselves, beyond our own human understanding, beyond our wills, beyond what we desire, beyond what is comfortable for us. He's always calling us out. because he calls us to conversion. Paul, be transformed by the renewal of your mind. The word we use for conversion, Greek, metanoia, go beyond your mind. And so if you are completely comfortable following Jesus, if you never have any problems with church teaching or with any of the commandments of God, if you never struggle to follow God in your life, I'm not completely sure whom you're following, really. I don't know anyone that's never had any struggles following Jesus, right? And when I look and I think about his mother, usually we think of that passage, she pondered these things in her heart, and I'm not saying it's not a good way to look at it. I too think about it and think, we're impressed with the contemplative nature of Mary or something, And that's fine. But I also look at that and I think, okay, she didn't completely understand either. So that's okay if I don't completely understand everything, And when Jesus was 13, he answered her call, right? The scripture says he went back and was obedient to them. But not now, not in today's gospel. Now Mary must follow Jesus' call, as we must all. And so we step out in faith. We step out not seeing everything, not knowing everything, not completely sure of everything. And that's okay. That's the way of the Christian walk.